At the end of a frustrating first half, it's always nice to go out on a winning series. And it's really nice to beat those stinking Houston Astros.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about this weekend series against the Houston Astros. The Rangers making it to this All-Star break, still standing, and a little bit about these Rangers day one draft pick selections. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, the Rangers head into the All-Star break, winning 2 out of 3 games in Houston, a series that looked like a surefire sweep after how the Rangers had just struggled so mightily in that first half and how the Astros had been performing so incredibly well since the calendar turned to May. But the Rangers take 2 out of 3, including the one loss that they had, just an extra innings loss in 11, where the bullpen, after pitching so many guys so many days in a row, just could not quite hold up. But the Rangers taking 2 out of 3, and they end the first half 48-49, just barely shy of 500. Honestly, one win difference would have had them above 500. There are quite a few stupid losses to pick from that they could have turned into wins that would have had them above 500. But you look at their run differential, you look what the offense has done lately, and you'll take it. The Rangers are plus 47 run in terms of their run differential, which is higher than the team holding the final wildcard spot. That is the Seattle Mariners. They are at plus 32. The Rangers are 3.5 games back in that wild card race. They are 8.5 games back in the division. So not completely out of it. Not where they wanted to be, but definitely better than where they were a month ago. But I want to start with this series and start with the final game of this series. A great start for Nathan freaking Eovaldi, who threw around 70 pitches in his last start out. I thought maybe he could have gone a little bit more, so he would have been built up to throw as many pitches as he wanted or needed to in this final game before the All-Star break. But he said, you know what? That's fine. I didn't need to throw a few more, another inning in a blowout win against those stinking Los Angeles Angels. I am fine to go 7 2/3 innings with 8 strikeouts, 5 hits, 1 walk, 1 run coming off of a solo shot by the 9-hole hitter, Zach Short, the first and only so far right-handed hitter to homer off of Nathan Eovaldi this season. Went 102 pitches, 73 of those were for strikes, and he had 8 strikeouts, even though he didn't have a strikeout through his first 3 innings. It wasn't the 4th inning until he got his first strikeout of the game. And he's like, you know what? What if I get a bunch of these bad boys in a row? And he did, and he looked outstanding. Just an incredible first half for Nathan Eovaldi, who finishes at 7-3 with a 1.58 ERA. He has been absolutely outstanding. He is the Rangers baseball reference WAR leader heading into the break at 3.4, trailed closely by Corey Seager at 3.3, and then Jacob deGrom all the way down there at 3.0. But Nathan Eovaldi, despite missing the better part of a month, he made 16 starts before the All-Star break, over 90 innings, and a sub-2 ERA at 1.58. I think it might have been right around 1.5 exactly on the dot had he not given up that solo home run, which was just the 5th home run he's given up in those 91 innings. This guy has been outstanding, and not just that, always coming up huge when the Rangers need him most. Not just pitching well, but pitching deep into games. Like, you remember that complete game he had against the Reds when the Rangers bullpen was just completely shelled early on this season? I do. did a Mannix on exactly pitch number 99, just a night after the Rangers bullpen got absolutely shellacked and Kumar Rocker got shellacked. And this guy just time and time again, not just in the postseason, but definitely in the postseason, but also in big regular season games, just comes up so incredibly big for this team time and time again. And the offense as well. You got to give this offense a lot of credit for getting to Hunter Brown. 4 runs off of Hunter Brown. I'm a little frustrated they couldn't get him out before that 5th inning because, through the first 3 innings, he was averaging at least 21 pitches per inning. He settled in there a little bit in the 4th and the 5th innings, which is not normally what you'd think. Seeing him, more times, you'd usually think that would lead to the Rangers hitting him a little bit better. But this Rangers offense was just thriving in this one, and especially Evan Carter in this final game, the MVP of this game by far, when this game was still on the ropes, making a sliding, diving catch in shallow center field that looked like all the world to be an RBI single. But it was not, because freaking Evan Carter was there, and freaking Evan Carter was back. Just a beautiful bit of defense. And Evan Carter, with a couple extra base hits in this one, a double and an RBI triple, ends up scoring the Rangers' first run of the game. He was just absolutely outstanding, and he has been such an instrumental part of this Rangers offense just being completely back. But it wasn't just Evan Carter going to town in this game. It was the Rangers piling on offensively with the long ball. Marcus Semien, his 12th home run of the season. Just an absolute perfect Dyken Park Crawford boxes shot that would have only been a home run in just a few stadiums. Not quite as few stadiums as Kyle Higashioka's home run that came to tie the game that sent the Rangers 2 extras, but back-to-back games with a homer from Marcus Semien. His 250th career homer would have been just a homer in 7 of 30 ballparks, just a 120 expected batting average, but expect that to be a little bit higher whenever you are playing in a park that has basically a kid-sized dimension out there in left field. But hey, if the Astros get to play with it, you do too. It does not change. The dimensions of the park do not change when the opposing team comes up to bat. The Rangers absolutely take advantage of it. I mean, Marcus Semien going town in this series, Adolis Garcia homering twice in this series. Gosh, he just really loves being a villain and obliterating these stinking Houston Astros. But it wasn't just that. It was all the way up and down this lineup, just time and time again, stepping up in this one. I mean, not really a big game for either Josh Smith or Corey Seager in this finale. I mean, Seager extending his on-base streak to, I believe, 17 games at this point, but he went 0 for 3 with just a walk and a strikeout in this one. But Zeke Duran with a clutch RBI double after the Rangers got Evan Carter to third base with nobody out and could not get him home with the first two hitters that had a chance to just hit a ball into the outfield and get him home. But Zeke Duran doubling, just barely keeping that ball fair, but fair is fair, and hopping into the stands, an RBI double. He had another hit later on in this game. He also worked a walk, reaching base 3 times in this one. It has been a struggle for Zeke Duran offensively so far in the first half of this season. He wasn't even supposed to play in this game. Jake Berger was supposed to play in this game. He's dealing with a little bit of an issue with his quad. I don't think that will end up requiring any kind of IL stint. Hopefully this All-Star break, he can just get rested, get relaxed, and get fully healthy, because Jake Berger is much more of a second half player than he is a first half player. So if he starts heating up along with everybody else that has been heating up in this lineup, that is a hugely great sign for him. But Nathan Eovaldi being able to go deep in this game after the Rangers had to go very deep into their pen the night before, and not quite as deep, but a little deep into their pen on Friday night, going 7 2/3 innings, to where everybody in that pen gets 5 full days off for the All-Star break. Outside of Sean Armstrong, he comes in there as just a little bit of worry, but finishes out the first half strong with a 3.21 ERA, an inning and a third of shutout baseball. Does give up a leadoff double, or I guess not quite a leadoff, but the first batter he faces is a double for Isaac Paredes, who I thought had homered on the first pitch that he saw in this game. Turns out, crew chief review, nope, not quite a home run, even in that Little League ballpark that he is absolutely tailored to. Another ball that looked like it would have been a home run in this park ended up being a double. The Rangers were able to keep the Astros mostly off the board in this one and mostly dominate. And it wasn't just Nathan Eovaldi having a big series on the pitching front or even just one day of great offense. It was a great whole weekend. We're going to talk about Jack Leiter, why even though his start didn't look incredibly pretty, it is a hugely great sign for him and this Rangers team moving into the second half. All that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Gametime. You know, we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop the closer it gets to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling and trying to find the best deal, Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section. Ever wonder what it looks like, exactly what your seat looks like before you buy? You can get a panoramic seat view from your app, so there are no surprises once you get there. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Shout out to the Everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be talking a little bit about the Rangers' Day 2 draftee selections, rounds 4 through 20, and I'll also be starting my top 30 midseason prospect re-rank. I'll be doing that all throughout this week, so go check out all those shows there. Now, this Rangers team didn't just dominate on the Sunday game, they dominated on the Friday game as well, and it was a really great start from Jack Leiter. You may be looking at the stats thinking, okay, how is 5 1/3 innings, 3 runs when the Rangers were just giving him such a big lead? How is that a great start for Jack Leiter? And I will say it's a great start for Jack Leiter because you look back at what this start could have looked like had he let it get off the rails, had he been pitching like he had before. This was a big step forward for Jack Leiter because even though he didn't have his best stuff, even though he was walking a few too many guys, he was allowing a few too many hits, he was able to limit the damage and go 5 1/3 innings. Maybe could have finished out that 6th inning and saved this pen. One more guy throwing that much more. But again, he was able to finish it off and make it mostly drama-free. 6 strikeouts for him in 5 1/3 innings of work, including multiple strikeouts against Bryce Matthews, who was making his big league debut. Shout out to a Bryce who spells his name correctly. A real darn shame that you are on the Houston Astros, but congrats on making the big leagues. Here's 100 miles an hour from Jack Leiter at the top of the zone. There's absolutely nothing you can do with it. His stuff is just so darn nasty, and he was able to get by throwing better pitches with 2 strikes than he had before. He would get to 2 strikes earlier on in this season, and then he would let things spiral out of control. He wouldn't be able to finish guys off. He was able to do that a lot better in this start, and that's progress. That's big progress for Jack Leiter, which is something that should be, noticed and applauded. And this offense giving him plenty of run support in this one, just jumping on Lance McCullers Jr., probably could have got him out before he finished off that 3rd inning had Jonah Heim not decided that he wanted to try and be like Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford and go for third and get tagged out at third base. Just a wild decision base running wise in that one. Just some really weird base running decisions in general. A couple of times where you thought for sure Tony Beasley, who is always waving those windmill arms, would end up, scoring some runners. But especially in that game on Saturday, the Rangers ended up losing, not sending Corey Seager on a ball hit by Wyatt Langford that, probably should have scored Corey Seager. It was a Jose Altuve out there in the outfield, and then Altuve ends up completely just botching the throw because he is a terrible defender no matter where he is, whether it's in left field, whether it's at second base. He has an absolute noodle arm, and even though it's a shallow left field and Corey Seager is not a good runner and he has dealt with hamstring issues before, I really think that was a significantly better chance of just sending Seager home and making Jose Altuve beat you with his arm out there, something that almost never happens, than relying on Jonah Heim to get a 2-out RBI base hit. which is what it would have taken to score Seager at that point. And I don't think that was going to be a plan for success. But the Rangers offense just absolutely exploding in this one and getting to a starter on the ropes and getting him out of the game early, getting into this pen early on in this series. They didn't end up using too much of their bullpen, but the Rangers still got to see 3 different pitchers out of the pen. Ryan Gusto ended up throwing 4 1/3 innings, so mostly saving that Astros pen. But the Rangers got to it a little bit more in that Saturday game, and they even got to the Astros' best relievers in that Saturday game. I mean, that's the most encouraging thing for this Rangers offense. I mean, they couldn't do much of anything against Framber Valdez, but a lot of times it's not the day that you get there after a long day of travel that the offense suffers, because the Rangers offense was doing work. I mean, 7 runs after getting into their hotel in Houston at 5:45 a.m. because the stupid Los Angeles Angels decide, no, we want everybody to have to play no getaway games. And the Rangers weren't done with that Thursday game until what, 11 o'clock, 11:30 Central Time, and then immediately have to fly in for a game in Houston. So usually it's not the day after that long day of travel they were talking about on the broadcast that the offense suffers. It's usually day 2. But in that day 2, for a huge series after a 10-day road trip at near the very end of this first half, where the Rangers are just exhausted. They played so many extra innings games, so many long, close games that are just exhausting. And then heading into the final spot of this road trip, they don't get into that final city until 5:45. And the day 2, where the offense should be struggling, they still score 4 runs in this game. They're only able to score 1 off of Framber Valdez, and that came off of a wild pitch with the bases loaded. But they were able to get to Brian Abreu for a homer. They were able to get to Josh Hader for a blown save and a homer that only would have been a homer in one ballpark by Kyle Higashioka. But hey, you hit it where it's over the fence wherever you are. And Kyle Higashioka's home run was a unicorn home run, where it only would have been a home run in this ballpark. A .090 expected batting average, a 40-degree launch angle, just popped that thing way up there, and then ends up putting it over the fence, sending the Rangers 2 extra innings, giving themselves a chance to get it done in extra innings. They aren't quite able to do that. The Rangers just did a really bad job of hitting with runners in scoring position. They got 2 of their 4 runs off of solo shots, one by Marcus Semien off of Brian Abreu, one that with that Higgy home run that was just a beautiful tribute to how stupid the dimensions of the Houston Stadium are. But the Rangers had plenty of chances to score before that and around that. The Rangers were only 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position in this game. 2 for 17, not exactly ideal, but the Rangers did get a hit in extra innings. They did get a run in extra innings, but the bullpen wasn't quite able to hold on. And that hit was, of course, by Adolis freaking Garcia, a single that drove in Marcus Semien. And then even with him pumping his chest, pointing at the Astros dugout and kind of slow playing it on the way out of the box in that Saturday afternoon late night or Saturday late night game, still got himself to second base because the throw was a little bit off and because he was just absolutely booking it, getting in there at the back end of the throw. Just a great day for Adolis Garcia, who also had a beautiful diving catch in that game. But it wasn't just him coming up in big in that game. For the most part, this bullpen had done their jobs outside of just a rough day from Robert Garcia, the other Garcia, not having the best day. They're walking a couple of guys to get the bases loaded in the bottom of the 11th inning after the Rangers had already given them the lead with that Adolis Garcia RBI single. And a great pitching matchup from Jacob deGrom and Framber Valdez. That one lived up to the hype, where Jacob deGrom, his only 2 blemishes were a couple of bad pitches, one to freaking Jose Altuve, who had the scissor kick of death, which for some reason the broadcast was just obsessed with saying that, even though that's not what a scissor kick is. As someone who was on swim team for my entire high school career and also played collegiate water polo, I know what a scissor kick is, and that is absolutely not it. Just 2 bad pitches that ended up as 2 solo home runs. 2 of the 4 hits that he gave up all day. He only gave up 3 other base runners, besides those 2 home runs. And he had 8 strikeouts in this one. He finishes the first half with a 2.32 ERA as an all-star and a fantastic first half for him and overall for this Rangers team. But the future of this team is looking bright. The Rangers had some pretty darn good draft picks, some interesting draft picks as well, and a trend that might be starting of the Rangers with some two-way players. Talk about all that and more right after this. Now, the Rangers ended the first half on a win, a beautiful win, taking 2 out of 3 from the stinking Houston Astros. But that wasn't the last thing they did before this All-Star break truly kicked in. I guess it was technically done the second this game was done. But now, the draft is happening during the All-Star break. The MLB is trying to fit in a lot of different things all during All-Star weekend. I think honestly it's a bit much. I kind of liked it when the draft could be its own thing, but hey, having a little bit more spectacle to the MLB draft is, I think, a good thing. I think it comes at the expense of the futures game, which was kind of a dud in terms of Rangers perspective. The only Ranger prospect that was sent there was Sebastian Walcott. He went 0 for 1 with a sac fly and a ground out. It was fine. It was a fine day, but it just feels like they're really shoving that event under the rug, making it just a 7-inning game and making it Saturday afternoon before the All-Star break when everyone else is playing games and making it on a hard to find channel or streaming service. Always. It just feels like they don't really care about that game and they make it very, very difficult to promote or even care about that game or even watch that game, even if you are looking forward to it and trying to find it. But the draft is, in Major League Baseball's eyes, just a little bit bigger of a deal than that futures game, even though some of these draft picks will be playing in that futures game. One of those who might just be playing in the futures game is one of these 3 guys who the Rangers drafted in the first day of the MLB draft. The Rangers selected 12th overall Gavin Fien, a high school shortstop slash third baseman. He's listed as a third baseman by MLB Pipeline, but the Rangers are very insistent that he is not a shortstop. He is going to be is not a third baseman. He is going to be a shortstop. He is selected out of Great Oaks High School in Temecula, California. The Raiders picked him 12th overall, even though he was listed as the 22nd best prospect in MLB Pipeline in terms of their top prospects of the draft. The guy who the Rangers were mocked most, or at least most closely associated with, a guy who I really wanted to draft, the high school shortstop out of Mississippi, Purvis, Mississippi, JoJo Parker. He was gone with that 8th pick in the draft. So there were a couple other guys the Rangers were linked to. I'm glad that they didn't end up going with the college catcher slash outfielder Ike Irish. Part of that is because I don't know if he's actually going to be a catcher. A little bit of that is my own personal bias that he went to Auburn, but there are a couple other guys that were, mocked a little bit higher than Gavin Fien, like high school shortstops as well. I mean, there were 7 of the first 12 picks were high school shortstops. There was a lot of very talented high school shortstops in this class, including Steele Hall out of Hewitt-Trussville, Alabama, who was drafted a little bit ahead of where the Rangers were picking. But Daniel Pierce out of Mill Creek High School in Georgia, Kason Cunningham out of Johnson, Texas. I thought that either of those guys might be guys who the Rangers went ahead of going all the way down there to Gavin Fien down at the 22nd ranked best prospect in this class. But the Rangers have got an interesting draft strategy there. In terms of the guys who they drafted in the first day of picks, they had AJ Russell, a right-handed pitcher from Tennessee. They had a two-way player, Josh Owens. AJ Russell was out of the University of Tennessee. Josh Owens is out of a high school in Tennessee, and he is a two-way player. But back to Gavin Fien, he was a guy who hits for a decent amount of power. It looks like he projects for a lot more power. The Rangers really, really like his defensive aptitude. He is a guy who projects for 5 at least average or better tools. They are really banking on the bat as his carrying tool. He is a guy who just flicks his wrist and can get a lot of power generated there. He is very, very physically mature. And heading into his senior year, he was thought of as maybe the best high school prospect in this class. He ended up having a little bit more swing and miss in his game, a little bit less power, a little bit less contact in his senior year, but the Rangers are still banking on his offensive aptitude and their own player development system that they can get the most out of this kid. They are banking on him being a shortstop with potential plus hit and plus power tool. I mean, he is a guy who is a little bit bigger than what you think of as an average shortstop. He's listed at 6'3", 200 pounds already. And that is a guy who usually is a bit too big to play shortstop. But heck, the Rangers have a couple of different guys in their system in Sebastian Walcott, who's 6'5", and Corey Seager at the big league level, who is also 6'5", all of whom play shortstop. Maybe we're seeing a little bit more third base from Sebastian Walcott as of late. But I think this is an interesting pick. I think this is a guy who I trust the Rangers' first-round draft picks that they've made as of late, because after a long run in the 2000s of just really bad draft picks, I mean, just truly outside of, well, Mark Teixeira, there was not a whole lot to be said for, 15 years of picks, but especially from like 2007 to 2013, basically. I mean, the only thing they really had to show there from that span, I mean, they had a little bit of goodness from Tanner Scheppers, but not a whole lot there. In 2010, Luke Jackson has shown some promise. He's been a big leaguer at least for several years, but not a whole lot of production for the Rangers. In 2012, they had Lewis Brinson, who that was not the best pick. They got 2 All-Star years out of Joey Gallo and a lot of production there, and they also traded him for Zeke Duran and Josh Smith, which overall, that's a pretty good value from a guy who the Rangers drafted at 39th overall in 2012. But in between there and before Cole Reagans, the Rangers didn't have a whole lot of success. But since 2016, it has been a lot of hits on those draft picks. 2016, Cole Reagans, absolutely massive success there. 2017, Bubba Thompson and Chris Cease, not so much. 2018, Cole Winn, pretty darn good pick. The Rangers have gotten more production out of him than I think they expected, because those high school pitchers, drafting them is always very risky. Look at 2019, the Rangers have Josh Young, All-Star, World Series champion. That's a solid pick. Justin Foscue in 2020. The only time from 2019 to 2023 the Rangers drafted outside of the top 10 or even the top 8, that is still TBD how good of a pick that is. It's not looking particularly great. But then you look the next 3 years in a row, Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, Wyatt Langford, those are all absolutely slam dunk, massive successes. Now, a little bit of the scouting was done for you. Those guys were pretty clearly the top guys in that pick, and the Rangers were drafting pretty darn high up. But overall, the Rangers have done a good job of having some successful drafts the last couple of years, of pulling guys out of nowhere, like an Alejandro Rosario, like an Evan Carter. I mean, like that entire 2020 draft, really outside of their first round pick in Justin Foscue. I mean, the Rangers have done a good job of drafting. They've earned the benefit of the doubt with these guys that they are drafting, and they all have a pretty high amount of upside. I mean, Gavin Fien, the offensive upside there, I think is pretty darn high. I'm not going to rank any of these guys in my top 30 prospects this week, because none of them will have played a professional game or even signed at this point. I'm assuming the Rangers will probably sign all these guys. But the Rangers' second round pick, AJ Russell, was a guy who has a very, very nasty fastball. He worked as a reliever his sophomore year, and then his junior year he started, but he had internal brace surgery. So if it not for that, then he might have been a guy who went in the top half of the first round. But because of the surgery and the uncertainty there, the Rangers were able to get him as a second round pick, might be able to go under slot with him. Not entirely sure what that will look like, because he is going to be rehabbing for, I think, a decent amount of next year. So it wouldn't make sense for him to re-enter the draft. Maybe the Rangers go under slot there, and they could pay a little bit more to their third round pick in Josh Owens, who is a two-way player out of high school in Tennessee. He is not just a two-way player, but a two-position player as well. He is a right-handed pitcher. He is also listed as a shortstop / an outfielder. I would imagine the Rangers would pick one of those defensive positions to put him at, because being a two-way player who is also playing like shortstop and the outfield feels like a lot to put on a kid. But the Rangers are very adamant that this is going to be a two-way player. This is now the second two-way player in the Rangers system, or at least that is under contract, will be under contract for the Texas Rangers, Sung Jung Kim, who the Rangers spent a lot of their international bonus pool money that they didn't use on Roki Sasaki. He is still in Korea. He is going to be there until next year. He is finishing out high school, so he is not even going to play professionally this season. He has not played professionally this season. That is the plan. The Rangers have that under control, but they've been talking a lot about both these guys being two-way players, and it seems like an advantage that the Rangers have of like trying out these guys as two-way players. It seems like they have a plan in place. It seems like they know what they're doing. It seems like maybe they've talked to Shohei Ohtani's camp and kind of seen how that has worked. There are not a whole lot of two-way players in anybody's system. The closest was Jack Caglione, who was pitching a little bit when the Royals drafted him out of Florida, but he was just such a good hitter that they ended up scrapping that. That might end up being the case for either Sung Jung Kim or Josh Owens, but the Rangers see some real upside with both those guys who are both position players and two-way pitchers. Usually guys who are going to be pitchers and also hitting, like we've seen in Shohei Ohtani, they're just going to DH just to take a little bit of that stress off of their bat, off of their body. I mean, Shohei Ohtani played the outfield a lot more when he was in Japan before he came over stateside. But I think the Rangers have whatever they have, they feel very confident in whatever plans they have in place for both Josh Owens and Sung Jung Kim as two-way players. I'm really interested to see what it's going to look like. I'm really interested to see what the upside is with both those guys, if they can stick as two-way players and how long they will stick, or if one of those two positions is going to be just that much better that they end up scrapping what's going on with either of those. But I think the Rangers are going to stick with it. They've got a good plan in place for whatever they're doing. They feel a lot of confidence. They've sold Josh Owens and Sung Jung Kim on their ability to be two-way players, and it's going to take a little while for us to see what it actually looks like, but I am very, very excited to see what it looks like with him, with AJ Russell, and with Gavin Fien, the Rangers' first-round draft pick. The first half is officially over. We did it. We survived. We made it. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.